Are you ready to unlock your full potential? Motivational speaker, the comeback coach, and goal crusher Joe Rivera brings you inspiring leaders, incredible stories, and valuable lessons on how you can change, grow, and reforge your life. Now, here's your host, Joe Rivera.
What's up? What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Reforge Your Life Show. I'm your host, Joe Rivera, and here at the Reforge Your Life Show, we like to show you that the comeback is more than possible. And today, I'm honored to bring on my guest. Excited for this one. She's a speaker, an author, a coach. She's a friend, and she's awesome, and you guys are going to love her. Holly Jackson, welcome to the show. Thank you for coming through. I really appreciate having you here.
Thanks for having me. I wish I was sitting there with you next to the other couch with that cozy little mug so we could just like hang out.
Yeah, I know. Me too. Maybe we could transport you to New York real quick.
Wouldn't that be cool if we had that power, man? We could travel anywhere. Let's do it.
Absolutely. So, Holly, I've heard you talk. I've heard your story. But I definitely can't tell it the way you can. Nobody can. So I'd love for you to share that with the audience, and so they get to know a little bit more about you.
Yeah, well, I've had a lot of comebacks, but the one that I'm most known for is my famous bear story. And so the beginning of that story and why this is so relevant to a comeback is I had just gone through some extreme chronic pain and was facing some addiction to some muscle relaxers and had kind of started identifying with chronic pain as the focal point in my life after having a 10-level spinal fusion. And then I was in a really abusive marriage and, very verbally abusive and really lost who I was. And for people who know me today, they're like, how is that even possible? But it happens, like they just kind of chip away at you slowly over time. And I finally had a wake-up call. And a girlfriend called me out on it and said, I can't be your friend anymore. I don't even recognize who you are. I feel for you. I believe in you, but come back to me when you figure it out and you set yourself straight. At first, I was really angry. And then I was like, she's right. And I started kind of my comeback. And part of that was going through the divorce and getting out of that really, really volatile, negative, toxic relationship to re-find myself and owning what my part of the story was, which was being codependent and not repeating that in future relationships. So I did a step study on codependency and a program for 2 years and dated myself and worked through all those things and decided as I was doing the spiritual inventory section that was so difficult. As if you've ever done a step study, it's very, very vulnerable. And I got stuck there and decided to go backpacking alone in the woods. And I was like, oh, this will be great. I can be alone with my mental chatter. I can get away from distractions and journal and all the things. So I went on that trip and it was exactly what I needed. And the mental chatter that I was so scared to face was really not scary at all. It was like coming home to myself. And I was able to, do all those forgiveness practices and create the spiritual inventory. And I felt so just clean and fresh and renewed, and just the energy was great and everything was perfect. And so then the third day of that trip, I went to hike out to my car to go home. And I had run into some fellow backpackers the day before, and we had like a run-in with the bear. And they told me over coffee how to charge a bear, which I had never heard of. Yeah. And I'm like, okay, cool. That's new to me. And they said, well, it's a really unusual bear. We think she's a mom. There's a cub out there. And with the drought, we think that they're like really resource heavy and she's being very aggressive. And I said, okay, great. So they gave me a whistle and we practiced charging bears over coffee. These men saved my life. And I go my merry way. We're going separate directions. I've been hiking for about 3 or 4 hours. I look down at the trail and it's like really lush deep woods, so you can't see around the corner. And there's these fresh, massive bear paw prints on the ground. And I was just
Scary.
Ooh. Yeah, like, ooh. And then I looked down, hiking further, and I look down again and there's some small ones too. So like baby bear paw prints. And I was like, oh no, I'm in the wrong place. And I was just kind of praying that, that I was fine. And I turned the next corner on the trail and there's Mama Bear. And whew, man, my life flashed before my eyes. She starts charging at me immediately. And I'm terrified. And I remember thinking, because things slow down when you think you're going to die. They really do. And I remember thinking, oh, I'm in a really good place to go. I just gave all this forgiveness. There's a journal for the people that need to hear it. I've done the work. This is kind of a peaceful moment to go out. And then I was like, but I didn't come out here to work on this and give up. And so I remember what the guys told me, and I made myself big, made noise, all the normal things. And then I took a step forward and I charged Mama Bear. I was like, arf. I won't say it as loud as I did, or that will scare your people listening. And she stopped for a minute and looked at me. And then she started just charging me again. And at this point, I remember thinking, if I'm going to go, make it fast. I don't want to be out here like missing limbs and bleeding out for days or, something terrible. I said, just make it really fast. But then I got angry again. I was like, I have so much to live for. I have more I want to do. And so I was super brave and took another step forward and again growled at her. It was much louder than that. And that time it worked. And she just kind of looked at me stunned and she walked away. And after that, it actually helped me create my fear method, which I've done a TED Talk on. It's part of what I teach my clients. And not long after that, I started my own company. So that's my big comeback story.
And that's awesome. I mean, man, facing that bear that first time must have definitely had some fears going through your mind. I could only imagine that. So I'm curious though, because, you went through the tough time prior to the trip with the bear. You did a step study. Can you share with the audience what that step study consists of?
Yeah, so any step study, people typically only know about like step studies for alcoholics, right? They have programs, and I did this through Celebrate Recovery, which is through a church, so it's more of like a Christian-based program. But you don't have to be Christian. It's just you have to believe in something bigger than yourself for the program to really work and stick. And for a 12-step study, you can do it around any kind of addiction. And like if you have a shopping addiction, a sex addiction, for me, it was codependency. And codependency just means, for those of you that aren't aware, where you don't, like your partner or significant other's needs become more important than your own. And for example, let's say Joe is my partner and he's having a rough day. I'm going to listen to him and put his needs above my own and not tell him what's going on in my world. And also you start just spending all of your time together, identifying with that person. So in the step study, they have 12 steps you go through. And one of the later steps is that spiritual inventory piece. And that's where you are taking inventory of all the wrongs you've ever done. And then you go and apologize to those people if it actually makes sense and it's not going to be harmful or hurtful to them or you. Otherwise, you can kind of write a letter and burn it. And then you also do an inventory of all of the wrongs that have been done against you. And you can either have conversations with those folks to kind of clear the air and create harmony, or again, kind of just burn that or let it go as well.
So, yeah, I mean, I remember I burned some of my step 4 when I was done after I made amends. So I'm aware with the 12-step program. I went through a 12-step program as well. And I know that there's, that moral inventory that has to get done on yourself, and really learning to peel that onion back and take stock of who you are. What was that like for you going through that process? What came up in those moments?
Well, that's why I had to go on this solo backpacking trip in the woods, because every time I'd sit down and do it, I was procrastinating. I didn't want to do it. It didn't feel comfortable. And honestly, my biggest fear was facing my own mental chatter, like being alone in the woods where there was no exit route, there's no technology, because back then, like, you couldn't actually connect. Now you can backpack and people have their phones. It's so annoying. And but like back then, like there was no connection to civilization. Like you're 30, 40 miles in the wilderness, surviving on what's on your back, and there's no distractions. Like there's no excuse to not get it done. And I found it really freeing once I was in the right environment to do that. I remember where I went hiking in Lhasa National Park in California. They had a fire 4 or 5 years before. And so part of the national forest I was hiking through and backpacking through was burnt down. And I remember, wow, what a beautiful and interesting metaphor. Like I have burnt parts of my life down and I'm rebuilding them, and there was fresh green growth that was coming up. And then there were these beautiful lakes, and I looked at the lakes as kind of reflections and opportunities to slow down in nature and reflect on the lessons and the things that I needed forgiveness in and to give forgiveness for. So it was like the most beautiful situation and experience and space to do that. And then it was easy. I found it so easy and so freeing. Now, in terms of actually then going and having those conversations, that's more uncomfortable and more awkward. And I was very discerning with who I had those conversations with and with who that would not be productive to have those conversations with.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, you got to make sure that the people you have those conversations with, like you mentioned, it's not going to be someone you're going to hurt, but it's really about, cleaning your side of the street and making sure that that gets emptied out so that you can move forward. And you also spoke about, the power of forgiveness, and being able to forgive others, but also forgive yourself. Can you tell us a little bit more about what that was like?
Yeah. So, I mean, forgiveness is a daily, continuous journey that never stops, right? And I think when I was younger, because this is a while ago, this is like 15, 20 years. It's been a while. I'm like, I don't even know how many years it's been. And I think the younger version of myself struggled with, they don't deserve my forgiveness. And forgiveness is really about yourself, right? It's not about the other person. And when we refuse forgiveness to others, it puts us in a state of victimhood, and that gives them power. And so forgiveness is really about the person who's forgiving. It's not about the other person. It really, truly isn't. And if anything, they're punishing themselves in their own way, creating their own hell on earth in their own way. And so it was more about understanding that. And then also for the folks that did wrongs against me, it was in particular, do I feel safe having that conversation with this individual? Is it going to do any healing on either side, or is this just something I do in my own container and burn this and kind of put it out to God and the universe? And I don't know, I found that great. I think the harder part for most of us, because of how our brains are programmed with negativity bias for survival, it's harder to forgive ourselves. Like we are our own worst enemies and critics ever. And so like, that's why I'm saying, like, if you really look at that, the person you're trying to forgive, they're already beating themselves up if they have any decent moral code. And so there's nothing you can do that's going to like improve that. So let them do that separately and then forgive, because it's about your own mental fortitude, your own peace and harmony, and not letting things eat away at you. A lot of cancer patients are because they have so much unforgiveness and anger and things festering, and they're not letting it go. And when we don't move through emotions, they get stuck in our physical body and they create really bad diseases and physical ailments.
Yeah. Yeah, man. That release that happens when you forgive others, but then also when you forgive yourself, oh man, it's like such a relief that comes off of your shoulders, such a lift. Something else that I know is important through like the step work and doing that moral inventory is letting go of resentments. And, how important was that for you being coming from a toxic relationship? I'm sure there was resentment that gets built up from that. And also maybe resentment against yourself, right? Which goes back to forgiving yourself. But what was it like to let go, or to write down those resentments and then kind of let go of them?
Yeah, I'd say where it was tricky was with my now ex-husband, and that took years, right? It really, really did take years to fully not necessarily unresent him, but let it go. And part of that was because he was kind of like stalking me, and I had to get restraining orders. And so it wasn't like he was fully out of my life and it was a clean cut. It was kind of this ongoing thing. And to this day, once every couple of years, he'll try to request a connection on LinkedIn. And I'm just like, dude, get the message. But that was a daily practice. And where I ended up with that, because I also paid for his undergraduate degree. It was in my name, and I had no debt prior to him, and so I owed a lot of money from that marriage. And we had an agreement, and he didn't, keep his word in the agreement. And if I had legally tried to enforce it, it would have been more expensive than just letting him get away with it. Yeah. So what I ended up doing was I said, this is the only thing that's helped me, is I've just pretended that I put a kid of mine through college, right? And hopefully he's actually doing some good in the world with it. Hopefully he's learned some lessons. Hopefully, I know he's remarried. I hope he's doing a better job and they're happy and that he's being a good father and all the things. Like, I truly hope that, because I wouldn't wish anybody that experience. Like, it's just not worth it. And so, and then also there's the lesson of how do you prevent being taken advantage of in that way, in a healthy way, where you're still optimistic and able to have trust in relationships, but at the same time, fool me once, shame on you, fool me twice, shame on me. And so it's just learning important boundaries. So I don't really think I have any resentment in my life at all, or like really true regrets. I think also the forgiving myself part, early days was hard. But I was so relieved when I got out of that marriage. Like, day one, I could breathe again. And so I think that was easier, and it was more, I had regrets over staying so long, but I also knew and understood how smooth he was at kind of breaking me down over time. And what I did after that was just, I committed myself to never be in an abusive relationship of any kind ever again. So, if I'm in a relationship and someone starts truly gaslighting me, which is overused in our world, but truly gaslighting me or truly doing things that are clearly abusive, then I'm out. Like, no.
Well, that's an important message, and I'm curious. What would you say to the woman or man, right, that's in a toxic relationship? And they don't know how to get out, because there's people who stay in these relationships sometimes forever, unfortunately, or when it's too late, where they're not able to be able to rebound from it after that. So what do you say to someone that's in one of those situations?
Well, that's tricky. I actually recently had a friend who's been going through this, and we've been talking for 2 years, and she's just now starting to take action. And you kind of have to have a lot of sympathy and empathy for where they are, and remember the version of you when you were stuck, and not push them too hard. Because sometimes they're just not ready. And so it's kind of like baby steps, and it's trying to remind them of the support network they have, remind them that they can do life without this person. Because especially when you're married, man or woman, if they're really like narcissistic, or they're really smooth and they're being very abusive, it's something they do slowly over time. And they eventually kind of whittle away at your identity and belief system to where you believe you cannot survive without them financially, socially, emotionally, physically. You cannot survive without them. Like literally, you believe this.
Right.
I mean, when I was married at the end of it, I believed I was unattractive, overweight, disgusting, incapable of solid communication, could not handle anything financially on my own, would never find somebody who would love me again, and had no friends. These are all blasphemous lies, but I believed them because somebody I loved and trusted and, committed my life to told me them slowly over time. So when you're in that, one, it's hard because if you come at them too hard, they're going to they're so brainwashed, for a lack of a better word, that they're going to advocate for the spouse that's abusing them. So it's kind of like trying to share your story and try to relate to them and try to give them small steps they can take. Like, who in your world could you, if you needed to get away, stay with? What resources do you have? And for every untruth he's telling you, you can combat that with the actual real data points. You do have friends, you do have family, you do have finances that are your own. And it's just helping give them access to small resources to then re-empower them to kind of turn that road around and get away when they're ready to.
Yeah. Sometimes for some people, it's easier said than done, right? And that's why, like you said, you don't want to force them, but giving them that roadmap, that's a great strategy to lean into. I'm curious because you mentioned quite a few beliefs that came up that you kind of had instilled in you from, the toxic relationship. What are some of the limited beliefs that you really had to crack through in order to get to where you are today?
Yeah, so if we step away from just the abusive marriage side, for one, we're doing this work for life, Jill. Let's be real. But let's see, with my pain, I had doctors in white coats and experts tell me that I would be in a wheelchair for life. I would be on disability for life. I would not be able to, have children. I would not be able to live a full normal life. And so I had to work through a lot of limiting beliefs that people that are supposedly the experts. And luckily I have this gene inside of my DNA that's like, you tell me I can't do something, I'm like, I'm going to show you how wrong you are. So for me, it was like challenge accepted. But I mean, it was difficult because at first my pain journey was so extreme that I did get lost in the pain. And so I did kind of believe them. And I was like, what's the point of this? And that's not really who I was. So I had to do cognitive behavioral therapy, worked with coaches, worked with affirmations, got a yoga credential in a field that was accessible for my spinal fusion, and had to do a ton of reprogramming of everything between these 2 ears to not identify with pain as the focal point of my life, and wrote a book on it because our system is so messed up. And I've had this happen with my spinal fusion, I had a hip injury, then I've had a shoulder injury, and their solution is to cut you open and have surgery. And my spinal surgery was necessary, but I've had so many recommended surgeries that were not necessary. And their solution was to give up everything I loved to remain active, which would then probably put me in a wheelchair, or have this exploratory surgery. And I'm like, no, I don't agree with that. So then I find, holistic experts, physical therapists, and it took 1.5 years to heal, but it happened. And I didn't give up. Most people don't have that discipline or even know to advocate for themselves. They just believe the expert because they don't know that there's another option or another avenue. And so it's been honestly an ongoing journey. I have a shoulder injury that's taken a year and a half and it's still kind of an issue. And now this other good shoulder is like, I'm like, okay, we got this. And so it's kind of going back to that book, which it's funny what we write and teach is our own medicine that we need. So when I have injuries, my family and clients say, sounds like, I read this quote in this book and they quote my book to me. She has some good medicine you might need right now. So yeah.
Holly, what are some, because I'm a big believer also in the first thing that a lot of these experts want to do is cut you open, feed you pills, feed you medication that, 9 times out of 10 that you could do with it without, right? What are some other avenues that, people could look through that they could go and, they don't have to, go through with what the experts telling them to do. They could go a different avenue and see what their other options are, because a lot of people don't know what those other options could be.
Yeah. And first of all, I'm not a medical doctor. You should definitely work with your doctors. And sometimes I will be clear, sometimes there are medically necessary surgeries, but let's say something is exploratory and they don't really know that it's going to solve your problem, or you want to have the best plan and the best healing possible for even if you are having surgery. There are lots of holistic options out there. You have acupuncture, acupressure, dry needling, physical therapy. Physical therapy is one of the most underrated things in our world, and in particular this country. I cannot tell you how many freaking amazing physical therapists I have worked with who have put this body back together so that I can climb mountains. Like, I'm a rock climber, y'all. I'm supposed to be in a wheelchair and yet I'm climbing mountains.
Yeah, you go, girl.
I'm like, really? And so there's that. There's also cognitive behavioral therapy things. A lot of pain, it's in the brain. Our brain center and our nervous system actually controls the pain response. So working with a neurologist that's a pain expert, but also cognitive behavioral therapists, so that pain doesn't just become everything in your world, which is very difficult when you have chronic pain. And you guys, not only do I have a spinal fusion, I have endometriosis, and I have a lot of very serious chronic pain conditions, but pain is still not the center of my life. I mostly live a moderately pain-free life and a very happy life. But it's using these tools and modalities and having what I like to call your care team that's there to support you holistically in 360 degrees. And that includes therapy, like for your mind. When we have stress in our body, it creates oxidation that's going to create inflammation. And you're going to have injuries and more pain. And what is not more stressful than when your health is in, the crapper? That's very stressful. So you need to have those support tools, and you need to have communities. So I remember joining pain groups. The codependency step study was for my marriage codependency pain. And then I joined chronic pain groups because I felt so alone in the amount of physical pain that I was experiencing. Nobody could relate to what I was experiencing. And so knowing that you're not alone in your pain is also really supportive as well.
Yeah, knowing you're not alone is so crucial, so helpful. And I mean, also like the power of the mind, right? To say that you're not going to listen to these experts. You're not going to give up on yourself and believing in yourself that you could get through it is what it sounds like, helped you get through a lot of these challenges.
Yeah. And I the fear method is from chapter 10 in the book that I wrote, which is called Inspiration, Contagion, Health Secrets for Raving Success. And I break the 7 strategies of that chapter down into 4 easy steps that identify with pain and challenge. So it spells the fear acronym. So F is face it, face your pain. Like, it's there. Don't try to pretend it's not, or push it away, or it makes pain is much more painful. And for that matter, conflict is that much more painful when we try to ignore it. It doesn't go away. It festers. Yeah. So face it, it's there. And then the E stands for embrace curiosity. So instead of your doctor being the end all on it, get a second opinion, get a third opinion, find some holistic care folks, do your research on, other remedies that might treat this more naturally that are going to help you longer term. And then the A stands for advocate. My goodness, if we had more advocacy in this country for people advocating with their doctors, where we actually partnered with our medical care team versus them telling us what to do, we would have so much better health in this country. So advocate for what you want and need. And if you don't know what that is, again, go back to embracing curiosity and find the right people that are experts to help you with that. And then R stands for reach out. And that means reaching out to community members, family members, anybody who can support you. And then outside of the fear method, there's kind of a second A that's a bonus A, and that's to activate the right mindset. We have to be positive. Our brain is wired for negativity. And when you're in pain, you have a double whammy. So you need to be doing a lot of work of fixing your belief system, having good things to lean into, focusing on gratitude, doing affirmation work to get in the right mindset.
I love that. The fear A method. So when you cracked through those limited beliefs, I'm a big believer that, core values are uncovered. What are some of those core values that you lean into now that help you get through difficult times when life does throw those curveballs?
Yeah, so I actually do a daily morning meditation, and I'm like kind of cycling through my core values and how they feel energetically in me, so that I can, as an empath, identify what's mine and kind of create that bubble around myself, and still have empathy for the people I connect with, but know what's theirs and what's mine. So the core values that I meditate on daily are creativity, freedom, intimacy, inspiration, and love. And then there's one more I'm just blanking on. Oh, that's so bad. Anyway, it'll come to me later. But those are the core values I meditate on daily.
Man, the power of meditation is real, guys.
Harmony. That's
it. Oh man, harmony is so important. It's vital, right? To be in harmony just with who you truly are. And I'm a believer in being in harmony with that higher source, whether you call it God, the universe, infinite intelligence, but working in harmony to really work on creating your own destiny is so important. Holly, so now you went through this whole bear scene, you overcame, the toxic relationship, you overcame the pain. Please tell the audience what happened after that, what you're doing now, and where they could find you.
Yeah. So after my divorce, I stayed in California. And at the time I was working in the public sector. I actually switched to the private sector and worked at a company called Visa, the big credit card company. I think you've heard of it. And I kept climbing the corporate ladder, worked at Visa for 4.5 years, worked at Treasury Wine Estates, University of California, Office of the President, had a really great corporate career where I was basically at the top of the ladder. I was up for interim CIO before I retired from that ladder. And I just noticed I had 4 layoffs in a span of like 5 or 6 years. And I had some more kind of other health things that popped up. And I was like, this is a pattern. So I decided to leave corporate America and started my own company. Initially, that was doing health coaching, but nobody was paying for that. And I knew I wanted something bigger. I knew I was meant to heal the world. And I have so much experience working with businesses and nonprofits and communication and launching plans and marketing. And I said, okay, well, let's expand this. And I started working with business owners. And initially I did holistic business coaching and worked with those holistic businesses. But then when COVID happened, I lost all my clients and had another comeback. I had to borrow against my retirement under the CARES Act, moved across country to North Carolina to be more aligned with where I wanted to live on the East Coast, be near my family, save money because California is crazy expensive. And then I had a massive comeback and pivoted to doing revenue and performance consulting to a broader subset of small business owners. And essentially now we work with heart-centered small business owners who are doing good in the world. We help them go big to give big. And we believe that in doing that, we are healing the world by communities and services and platforms, nonprofits and foundations that these owners that's their legacy that they're building. And it grew 105% last year. We're going to beat that again this year already based on how things are trending. And so we're really passionate about that. And personally too, I mean, I've had long-term relationships since then. I haven't like remarried again yet. I'm picky, I learned a lot of things. So it's going to take a special man for this lady here. I have a dog, Charleston Cooper. He's part of our marketing team. We have letters from Charleston Cooper and his very smart and fun, playful reminders of business and, taking in moments of gratitude. And I have 5 beautiful nephews under 11. I'm close with my family. I'm climbing, mountains, doing rock climbing and a trip to Mexico this spring to climb some really, really cool monoliths and crack climbing. And yeah, I mean, I've also biked Lake Tahoe and was really into cycling when I was in California. Before that, I was into running and then swimming. And so right now, my current addiction is rock climbing.
That's awesome. I love what you're doing out there, Holly. You've helped me with a few things, and you're phenomenal at what you do. And tell the audience, please, where they could find you.
Yeah, you can find me at hollyjeanjackson.com. You can find me on LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, all the places, YouTube. And we have a podcast called Inspiration Contagion. The book is also called Inspiration Contagion. And I have a couple other collaborative books that we published as well.
Yeah, man. If y'all haven't checked out her podcast, check it out. Check out the books. Everything's going to be in the show notes. And Holly, a couple of questions that I ask all my guests. Number one is, what brings your spirit alive?
Ooh. Honestly, what I'm here to do, I don't know if you guys believe in past lives. I definitely have had either past lives or, string theory lives where I can just like connect to those other universes. I don't know, who knows what it is, but, I know I'm a healer. And so what gets me out of bed every day is doing the work and I get to choose the clients we work with that are doing amazing things. They're changing lives. We have VA agencies in the Philippines that are changing lives there, and they're helping Filipino women and moms have homes and, educate their children. We have clients who are trying to change the face of climate. We have clients who are working in cybersecurity to protect small and medium-sized business owners. We have clients they're just doing amazing things. And honestly, with the news out there, I wouldn't be able to get out of bed if I don't do what I do. But I meet so many amazing people that have the true human spirit of wanting to fix these things. And that's what keeps me alive and excited.
Oh, love that. Love that. Love when I hear someone walking and living in their purpose, girl. Keep doing it. So speaking of purpose, what does the word purpose mean to you?
Yeah, oh my goodness. There are so many people that sleepwalk through life, and they're just these untapped zombies. They sit on couches all day. They aren't alive. You can just feel like they're those doldrum. If you guys have, ever read the book where the doldrums are mentioned, they're stuck in like this snotty, gross spot. And they're not lights in this world. And right now we need a lot of lights in this world. When you're in your purpose, regardless of if it's a so-called small purpose, which there are no small purposes, it's all connected. We are all connected.
That's right.
But when you are on purpose, you're in intention. And when we have intention and we know what that purpose is, we are a light and you're in flow. Things are easy. Things feel almost magical. This is where miracles happen. And so when you're in your purpose, how do you say no to that? I mean, I was telling Joe before we started recording, I had a sales call today, and it's like an introduction from an introduction from an introduction. And they're like, "Oh, you've worked with Holly before?" And he's like, "No, but a person I trust recommended we chat with Holly." And he's like, "Great." And he's like, great. We're going to buy this first package, and whatever you recommend on this platform, we're going to do what Holly says. And I'm like, "Great. Awesome." But I think it's when you have that purpose, that energy, and you reflect that through your marketing, if you're in business, through your message, if you're a speaker, through your words, if you're an author, people are captivated and drawn to that, and they need your medicine. And so when you're in your purpose, you are the solution and the light in the world.
I love that. The solution and the light in the world when you're in your purpose. That's powerful. Holly, when you hear the word reforge, what comes to mind? What does that mean to you?
So the first thing that comes to mind is like the Vikings, right? When they have like their like equipment and they're like taking metal and like reforging it into something, right? For like their new weapon or their new tool. And what I love about that is we all have these second chances. So you can take that metal thing that maybe was a weapon and make it a light that's, you know, a lighthouse that attracts the right people that you're the magnet for. Or if you need a weapon because you're being abused and like you need just that metaphor, you can take that soft thing and create and reforge that metal into the protection that you need. So for me, reforge is this beautiful metaphor for second chances, and the fact that we can always alchemize and change what that new purpose, that new outcome is, and get what we need in order to get there on our journey.
Oh, man, that's beautiful, man. Thank God for second chances, right? I love the second chance that I got in life. I mean, it's such a blessing. Oh, man. So what's one thing the audience doesn't know about Holly Jackson that she likes to do for fun?
Oh, okay. Oh my goodness. One thing they don't know that we haven't already talked about. I love music, and I actually have a minor in music performance. I played clarinet and piano, and I'm obsessed with going to music shows, and it's on my bucket list. It will happen eventually when I have time and it's the right alignment, to learn jazz vocal and piano lessons and perform with a jazz trio. So coming soon.
Awesome. Look at that. You learn something new every day. I've known you all this time. I never knew you liked to play the piano.
Really?
Yeah.
I played since I was 8. So I've been playing for 33 years.
That's awesome. The piano is an awesome instrument. Holly, thank you so much for coming through today. This was awesome. I already knew what to expect, but exceeded my expectations, man. You are awesome. Thank you so much.
Aw, thanks, you too, Joe. And for those of you who don't know about Joe, he is amazing. He is in his purpose. He has such a great story, such a great message, and such a big heart. So you guys probably already love him if you're listening to him. But if not, make sure you subscribe and follow all his stuff.
You are awesome, Holly. Everyone listening and watching, follow. Thank you for listening. And please follow, subscribe, like, and man, I share this every episode. I'm going to share it again. Share it is the most important part, man. Sharing is caring. There's somebody out there who's not listening, not watching, and they're struggling right now. They don't know how to create their bounce back. They don't know how to reforge their life. And an episode like this or one of the other episodes might save their life or might help them take their business to the next level or whatever it is. So please, again, don't forget to share this episode. Thank y'all for coming through. Stay productive, stay profitable, and stay blessed.
You've been listening to Reforge Your Life with your host, Joe Rivera. Make sure to subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. To learn more about Joe Rivera and how he can help you or your organization reforge your life and regain your place at the top, head on over to withjoerivera.com and follow Joe on all social platforms. The Reforge Your Life podcast was produced by Thrive Loud Productions. Thanks for listening.